On the ground level, we have a sculpture piece that we refer to as Harmonic Percolator. The idea behind was to give the viewer, as they enter the gallery, a complete overview of what TARWUK is about.
For this show, we are separating mediums for the first time, taking the metaphor of theater as a framework, separating the installation on the ground level from the paintings and drawings on the lower levels. The installation acts almost as like the manifestation of the collaborative practice that takes the inputs, subjective inputs of the collaborators and generates harmonies.
We are trying to materialize what is it that we actually do. So the sculpture contains all the facets of our practice.
The idea of a theater as a metaphor for the practice really comes from the collaborative aspect of theatrical production, and in a way it's interesting with this installation to kind of compensate the viewer in the experience of the installation as well.
I think that that's sort of like a unique thing for collaborations, that you are the one who makes the work but at the same time a spectator. And it's a very unique way of creating art, and that's why I feel like the theory of theater gave us a better insight in these like invisible mechanisms that move us through our practice.
The performative nature of the practice itself as a collaborative act really shows itself through the videos. One of the videos is concentrated on the private performances we've been doing for the last couple of years, and the other is more like a meta layer of us trying to explain to ourselves what it is, kind of experimenting with selfhood and opening it up in like a broader sense. What I find interesting is to start with the construction of the object itself as a painting. We work with certain ideas or objects over a long period of time, and two of the paintings in the show are actually composed of elements that were used in a previous show, almost like a framing device. And for this exhibition, they were joined together to create the architecture of the painting itself. And then once they were joined, we kind of tried to find the suggested image within it, rather than imposing an image over them.
The work we are seeing in this room sort of spans the last 3 years. There was a certain evolution of thematics. What has always been part of the practice is that the protagonists are in a way aware of the viewer, aware of being watched, and that's something that connects all of the work in this room. Everything within a practice happens organically. So it's never something that it's like outside of our daily lives that we reach for. The colors happen very spontaneously.
All the objects from the practice, we kind of stumble into their own logic without being aware of what they want, what they do. I think the collaborative nature, how we work, is more focused on trying to sync the two subjectivities and less about trying to follow a certain idea all the way through. In painting specifically, we stumble into these formal solutions or conceptual threads without necessarily being invested in them at the start. So all the awareness of the compositional or color choices kind of happens after the act of painting itself. We're really trying to follow each other's marks and try to follow what the painting sort of suggests. And then after we both feel that the process is finished, we kind of do like a reverse analysis of what happened and try to figure out if there is something that could be useful for the next experiment.
I guess that's a good example of being a viewer within your own practice, and we are sort of also witnesses of each other's marks.
Drawing is the crux of the practice because it's an immediate mark making, and it's easy to pass a piece of paper between us, but then that can grow in scale. These drawings on paper started as very spontaneous collages. We took a group of works that were finished and white gessoed over them and printed in hand-carved lino blocks the names of the 5 studios that we inhabited so far. We took those and added another layer on them, which are kind of these costume studies. We were kind of making them in the Harmonic Percolator. So we're physically in the installation, making these works that very much came from the installation itself.
Because the two of us make the work, you can't follow just a single thread. And the work is just a byproduct of these more social experiments. Trying to define what we do or what TARWUK is part of our practice, and it's something that is continuously evolving and something that we are searching for, in a sense. When we make the work, we never think about the viewer. But when we make our exhibitions, that's the main thing we think about. The viewer is the final key. If the story can keep on living outside of our studio, then outside of the gallery, in the world, within the people, then that's the greatest success we can do.